all times. I'm glad that I can talk to you about Krishna consciousness. If you have any questions, please you ask. And I need some water.
Yeah, I will bring that.
And let's see. Here's a verse. I can read the verse to you in Sanskrit. Tavat rinakam nahusha shasasha vidyatapo yoga bala nu bhavaha sa sampat aishvaya man madan ha buddhir nitas chidasam gatim indra padni. Yeah, there's a verse. As the different limbs of the body cannot see the eyes, the living entities cannot see Supreme Lord, who situates as a super soul in everyone's heart, not by the senses, by the mind, by the life air, by thoughts within the heart, or by vibrations. This is a complete different verse than I have here. You see? There's a purport there. When the living entity is certain the real situation of the Supreme Lord, purport. All different parts of the body do not have the power to see the eyes. The eyes direct the movement of the body's different parts. The legs move forward because the eye sees what is in front of them, and the hand touches because the eye sees the touchable entities. Similarly, every living being acts according to the direction of the super soul, who sits in the heart. As the Lord himself confirms in Bhagavata, Savasya Chamaridi Sanivishto Matasmiti Ganam. I'm sitting in everyone's heart and giving directions for remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Get me this verse here. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati. Supreme Lord is a super soul situated in the heart. Living entity cannot do anything without the sanction of the super soul. The super soul is acting at every moment, but the living entity cannot understand the former activities of the super soul by manipulating his senses. The example of the eyes and the bodily limbs is very appropriate. If the limbs could see, they could walk forward without the help of the eyes, but that is impossible. Although one cannot see the super soul in one's heart through sensual activities and directions, his direction is necessary. So, Omagyantividandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakru Amritam Vinatasmai Siguravinama. Let us chant Hare Krishna for one moment together. 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare. Once more. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare. And once more. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama.
Hare Hare.
So this is verse that the soul is equipped with different limbs by which it can see. Just like there's this verse that although the senses are made of matter, the table is made out of matter. There's a table out here, and my eyes are made out of matter. But the difference is that the eyes are animated by the soul. There's this verse, as the sun pervades the whole universe with sunshine, in the same way the soul penetrates the body with consciousness. So the eyes are matter animated, and the desk is matter inanimated. See? Eyes can see the table cannot see the eyes. And so in the same way, therefore, senses are higher than matter, higher than the senses of mind, higher than the mind is intelligence, and higher than intelligence is the soul. And all this is working only because of Krishna's grace. I cannot, you cannot, we cannot lift our hand without Krishna. You cannot see anything without Krishna. You cannot feel anything without Krishna. You cannot smell anything without Krishna. You cannot taste anything without Krishna. Nothing works. Nothing works without Krishna. He is involved in every, minutely in every second of our existence, at every moment. So people see normally God somewhere in the clouds. There's a French song, Vous qui cherchez le bon Dieu dans les nuages, vous ne verrez jamais son visage. That means, oh, you who look for God in the clouds, you will never see his face. And that's a fake, because the Lord is everywhere. And Prabhupada, when he was leaving his body, I was right there, sitting beside him in the last 3 weeks of his life. I was in Prabhupada's room. So just before he left his body was already struggling. Not Prabhupada was struggling, but his body. If you, anybody of you has seen a person die, you have to see it one time only. And then you know, when you hear that sound, what is happening. Guru Guru is called in Vedic scriptures. That sound of mucus is gathering in the throat. So in this middle of this struggle of the body for air, it's not Prabhupada, it's the body of Prabhupada. Prabhupada lifted up his hand very peacefully, so everybody stopped and looked at him. And he said, took him about 2 or 3 minutes, he said, everything moving and non-moving, there's nothing but Krishna. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. Very profound. Yomam pasyati savatra samsmai pasyati tasyam pranashami satsamina pranashati. One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. I'm never lost, nor is he ever lost in me. So Prabhupada, he was not lost, he was with Krishna. At every moment, he saw Krishna. And so he said that everything moving and non-moving is nothing but Krishna. And this, then this Krishna, this consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. Then he took a couple of breaths and then he said, Hare Krishna. And it states there, the na came out of his mouth. He was already on his way to Krishna's kingdom. Awesome moment. We all cried. Everyone in the room, about 60 people were in the room. We all cried like children. We lost our father at that moment. So Srila Prabhupada, he stayed with us throughout the balance of his life. And he wanted us to understand the philosophy very carefully. And the fact is, what we have to understand is that I cannot scratch my head right now without the help of the super soul. You see myself scratching the head. You can't. Such a simple thing. How do you scratch your head? Is a very deep philosophical question. I'm not the body. Why do I scratch my head? What is the relationship between the body and the soul? Again, I scratch my head. So the answer is there. And although we're not the body, the only connection from the body to the soul is consciousness. That's the only connection. There's no other connection. There's no wires or anything. There's nothing. The only connection is consciousness. And so this is Prithu Das sitting in front of you. I, the soul, Prithu Das, realize that there's an itch right now at my nose because I'm penetrating this body with consciousness. And I feel uncomfortable that there's a scratch on my head, an itch on my head. So what happens? What actually happens? How do I get my head from here to there? What happens? The answer is very simple. It's very simple but very profound. That I'm conscious of my body. Krishna, the super soul, knows that I'm uncomfortable. He is arranging. He knows this Prithu Das wants to scratch his head, the head of his body. And he calls the devas. Hare Krishna, this is Krishna. Oh, Shri Bhagavan ki jai, Lord, what can we do for you? There's this boy, Prithu, he's sitting in front of his computer in Bangalore. He wants to scratch his nose right now. Can you arrange? Yes, Bhagavan. Then the hand under the control of the demigods, there's this picture in Bhagavad Gita that you may have seen. They're actually, manipulating the puppet. Puppet Krishna wants to go this way, but we want to go that way. That's the general problem of the soul in the material world. Krishna, everybody wants to do his own thing. While in the spiritual world, everybody wants to do Krishna's thing. That's the difference. And so if you want to do our own thing, then Krishna says, all right, yeah, Haribol, you go. And so he creates this material world like a father creates a sandbox for his children. And then the kids, they can play in this sandbox till they get tired of it and want to get out of the sandbox and go back out of the sandbox into so-called reality. That's a bigger sandbox. And the sandbox is going on. So the demigods are arranging what happens. They get the signal from the super soul. They're acting on behalf of the super soul, and then this is what happens. The hands lifts up under the control of the super soul, under the supervision of God, and then chick, 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 chick. It's very simple, actually. This is how that works. Now you know how to scratch your head. You can ask people, in college, how do you scratch your head? If he's a sensible person, if he's intelligent person, he says, let me ask you, how do you scratch your head? Very simple question. Only by Krishna's grace. By Krishna's grace, I can scratch my head. By Krishna's grace, I can eat. By Krishna's grace, I can see. By Krishna's grace, everything by Krishna's grace. Nothing without Krishna's grace. You cannot lift your finger without God. And just this illusion of material people in the material world, they think, I can do, I'm wonderful. The President of the United States, he thinks I can do any damn thing, whatever I want, because he's not very enlightened. He's not a very enlightened position to think like that. So we have to see how Krishna arranges everything for the living entity. When we leave the material world, in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, there's no super soul. We are directly connected with Krishna. The body is transcendental. This is Krishna's part. Mama Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhutta Sanatana. So he says very clearly that all living entities are my parts. And so there's no need for the super soul. Just cover this. There's no need for the super soul. Everything is, but when the living energy decides to go into the material world, Krishna goes with us. He's so kind. And he goes with us into millions of forms. Millions of forms. Important that the soul is everywhere in all creatures. Materialistic people, particularly meat eaters, don't understand this. And the soul is on all creatures. And therefore they can just eat a cow, they can eat anything they want, a rat in China or whatever, and take everything because they are not sensitive to Krishna's presence everywhere. They're not Krishna conscious. Now we have this war, in a raving war down there in Iran. We have a raving war going on in Ukraine. There are always raving wars going on since time immemorial, since the beginning of mankind. There have been wars because people don't see the soul in all creatures. That's the point. Robert said, in 1944, he wrote, unless the soul is seen in all creatures, the dual frenzy of love and hate. The people love, I love you, and I hate you, is going forever. and the world never finds peace. What an awesome sentence that is. A proper look through the entire misere, the entire problem of mankind. The soul is not seen in all creatures. You know, if you ask any Muslim, any Christian, any Jewish person, what is soul? There's no answer. Even Buddhism. Prabhupada, when he was in Germany, he talked to one famous professor, Professor Durkheim. He's a very well-decorated person by the German government. Famous, he brought Zen Buddhism to the Western world. I arranged the interview. I knew something about Durkheim when Prabhupada came to Germany. He told me to meet important personalities. So this Professor Durkheim came. And so Prabhupada, he had the habit to ask always this one question. Sir, what is your philosophy? This was Prabhupada's question, standard question. Every time he said in front of somebody, what is your philosophy? And generally people don't hear, they just talk to somebody. And for half an hour, you talk to somebody enthusiastically, and after half an hour, the person may say Hindi nay, because you didn't ask him the question. You don't understand him. So Prabhupada asked this question, Professor Durkheim, what is your philosophy? What happens when a person dies? And he says, well, he leaves the body and goes elsewhere. And Prabhupada said, who is traveling? Who is traveling when a person dies? And the Buddhist scholar, famous man worldwide, you can see it on the internet, he said, the mind. And Srila Prabhupada said, that's true, the mind goes, no doubt about it. What else? Nothing. Prabhupada said, there's a lot more than that. He said, no, that's just the mind travels. And Prabhupada said, well, this is not completely wrong. It says in Bhagavad Gita, yam yam apismaran bhavam jajati yam kalivaram tam tamivati kauntiya sadada bhavavavita. Wherever the mind is at the point of death, there you go. This is very clear. The mind goes. So Prabhupada said, what else? The Buddhist professor, Swamiji, you called me unattended. I cannot answer this question. Prabhupada said, beyond the body, the mind goes. Body is bhumya apona lokai kamanu bhulevacha. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. That's the gross body, which is called stula sarira. Then there's a subtle body. Mind, manasarira, buddha ahankara. So besides the mind, manasarira, goes the buddhi sarira, the intelligence travels. What else goes? Professor said, I don't know. Well, the false ego, ankara, goes. This is called this subtle body of a living being. Gross body and mind. So he says the mind goes. So these are important components of our existence. And you can see the difference between the gross body and the mind and the subtle body very vividly in a dream. The body may lie in bed, but then the subtle body, manasarira, buddhisarira, ahankara, lifts up and you travel in a dream. And who is the passenger, Prabhupada said? Who is the passenger? There's a passenger inside this boat. The soul. The soul travels in this body from one place to another. So that's the vehicle. The subtle vehicle of the soul is this. The gross vehicle is lying on the ground and dead. So Prabhupada said, who is the driver of this three-wheeler? Like a three-wheeler has three parts. Manasarira, Buddhisarira, Ankara. Who's the driver? Who's the passenger? Who's the passenger of the three-wheeler? You're total passenger. Who's the passenger? The professor said, I have no idea. Prabhupada, who's the driver? No idea. And it's Krishna. Prabhupada, Krishna. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayang sarva bhutani yantra rudhani maya. So that's the driver. Ishvara sarva bhutanam, the Lord of all creatures. Hrideshe arjuna tishtati. He's situated in the heart of Arjuna. Brahmayan. Brahmayan, he moves sarva bhutani. That's right there. He's a mover. Brahmayan sarva bhutani. He's the driver of the Toto in which the soul is sitting. Yantra rudhani maya. A yantra, body, made by maya. Yantra rudhani maya. So that verse explains the whole thing. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. I think it's verse 66 in Bhagavad Gita. Look it up. It's verse 66. And so the professor was astounded. He was astounded. He never heard such a thing. And so, in other words, Buddhist knowledge is is incomplete. It's more advanced than Abrahamic religion. Abrahamic religion is Muslim, Christian, and Jewish, or even tribal. So their knowledge is deficient because there is no complete understanding of soul. Who am I? That's the question. And so Vedic scriptures, the first thing in Vedanta Sutras, Atatu Brahma Jignasa. No, is it? No, the first verse is, Atatu Brahma Jignasa, please now find out who you are. And then the answer is given, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm a soul. So that's knowledge. And without this knowledge, you cannot understand much. Like a buffalo, he has no knowledge of the soul. So what can he see? How does he understand reality? He sniffs, by sniffing. You hold a piece of something, or even your hand towards the cow. She sniffs, because the cow sees through the nose. There's a famous verse that the king sees through his spies. Even Lord Ramachandra had spies to extend his vision. Russia has a KGB, America has a CIA. They extend their knowledge by having secret service. So the king sees through his spies, the cow sees through her nose, as we have just seen. A human being sees through his mind and through his senses, sense perception. Direct perception is pratyaksha, and then sense perception, mental speculation. And all these ways of trying to observe reality, like the mind, not by mental speculation, by sense perception, one cannot understand the soul. One cannot understand the truth. Therefore, Sri Jiva Goswami explains in, no, I don't remember right now, that there are three ways of knowing. One way of knowing is direct perception, like you see the sun, looks this way and hot. At noon, in the evening, pleasant, sense perception. Then by mind, by mental speculation, mind and intelligence, you understand the soul is so much big, according to the scientists, and so hot, all these things. But you cannot understand more than that. You understand a certain level of reality. But there's another level of reality, and that is the sun god who is situated there, and a whole civilization that is situated there. We have no access to that, because our accessibility is limited to the mind and the senses and intelligence, human intelligence. Therefore, scientists will never find God. Impossible. Because he's not subject to sense perception. And so this is a problem of humanity in general, that we are very limited. You can talk to bull, to bullock, to water buffalo, Bhagavad Gita, can whisper into his ear the whole Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter. He won't get it. So when I was in college, I read Bhagavad Gita. I was studying comparative religion at the University of Bonn. So I couldn't understand a damn thing because the book was written by Mayavadi, Penguin edition, but it doesn't come out that there's a supreme. Who is that Krishna? I read Krishna says this, Krishna said that, and it was amazing. I never heard about reincarnation. I could see that, but I couldn't understand the whole thing because the whole thing is Krishna, the supreme personality of God, is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. I couldn't understand that. Once I understood this, I packed my bag and went into the temple. Very simple. So we have to understand. Give me the verse again. Let me get back to the verse. You had. Right, where is it? That is not the verse. That is the verse he gave you.
Yeah, he gave me that verse actually.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to it. So you see that how, let me cover my face, otherwise I look at my face, I want to look at you. So how the Lord is minutely involved in every second. And people cannot understand this, and because of that, they cannot understand reality. Why do people have war? Why people fight? Because they don't see the soul in other creatures. Why is material religion so blind? Because they have no knowledge of the soul. Why is one religion fights against another? Because they can't understand that I'm fighting against my brother. God has many forms, God has many names. He is at the origin of every religion, no doubt about it, even material religion. Everything is inspired by God. And so even a religion may be blind to the soul, it's still useful because it keeps morality in place. I mean, if you were to take a religion out of a country, it will turn into chaos. Everybody would do whatever he likes, no laws. So religion is important, even if it's mundane religion. It's useful. Ultimately, Sarva Dharma Prajaja, Krishna says, give up all mundane religion, Manudharma. Manudharma has to be superseded by real Dharma, by real scripture. But the blind uncle is still better than no uncle. Like I see in Germany, we have many Turkish people and they have shops on the street shops. And there's always an old man sitting. And I've seen, so they're sometimes blind, but they can hear. And so if somebody enters a shop, he calls his son, Shmulek, somebody came. So he's still useful and should not be discarded. It can be transcendented, like primary school is very useful, should never be given up, because there are always kids who need to go to primary school, secondary school, high school, all important. But ultimately, the university is the top, because there you learn how to do things in a scientific way, how to make your money in a more sophisticated way, and all these things. So every religion is created by God. We have to understand this, which is not at all clear in Western religiosity, that all religion is created by God, everybody is a Prakrita Bhakta, basically speaking, thinking my religion is the only religion, everybody goes straight to hell. And this is simply due to lack of knowledge, that every religion is useful, and every religion certainly can elevate a person up to a certain degree by basic principles like friendliness and respect to others. For example, love your neighbor as yourself, which is a great one. Love your enemy. Love, I mean, Jesus said some awesome things. Love your enemy. And if somebody beats you on the left cheek, give him the other cheek as well. So that's great understanding. If people would only follow this, they wouldn't go to war, because they see that we all have the same Father. Father may have different names, like the Son has different names in different countries, but the Son is one. So if I understand that this fellow who is sitting here beside me, what is your name?
Kartikeya.
Kartikeya, Prabhu. Kartikeya, we find out he has the same father that I have, then we are brothers. And so you don't fight with your brother. You know what I mean? So we are all brothers in humanity, not only humans. We are all the animals, the cows, the bulls, even the dogs. They are all brothers. And they have consciousness. The dog can understand if his master is angry. If you lift your cane, the dog runs away. If you call him, he will come. So the soul is everywhere in all creatures. And Prabhupada said that unless the soul is seen in all creatures, the world will never find peace. So this is a preaching point that you can use in the university. For example, if you have a friend there or you know somebody who's friendly to you, but he's a Christian, you should ask him this question. He said, why in the presence of God, we all agree God is everywhere. You certainly will agree. He's omnipresent. He's omniscient. He knows everything. Omnipotent, is all powerful. Why is it that in the presence of God, the most horrible things happen in the world? I asked this question when I was only 10 years old. My brother died of cancer. I asked the priest, why, Father? He said, I don't know. I said, there must be an answer. He said, I have no answer. We cannot answer this question. So I thought there must be no God at all, that everything is based on chance. Somebody has everything, somebody has nothing. No God in control, no man on the wheel. And so you ask him this question, why do the innocent suffer? He will not be able to answer this question. From the Pope all to the way down to the Christian street sweeper, there's no understanding why the innocent suffer, because they don't have a conception of soul. If you understand soul, you can understand the soul is eternal. Because it is eternal, it has to go from one body to another, because the body lasts only that long. Soul has no choice. And so it inhabits bodies for some time till that body is discarded like a shirt. Krishna says that, take a new shirt. And so if you were able, together with your Christian friend, to go see a person suffering, if you were able to go back into his previous life, if you were able to cross that threshold of birth and death, you can clearly see why a person is suffering, particularly why. Because you see that the presence is properly aligned with the past. And if you don't have that knowledge of the soul, you cannot understand a damn thing. You cannot understand why the innocent suffer. That's how do you say, the most delicate point, in the difficult point of all Abrahamic religion. If there's no concept of soul, we cannot understand why the innocent suffer. Not possible. You see? And so you ask the question, why? And when you answer the question, you say, you understand? He said, yes. So you understand now that your soul? You say, no. They won't get it. They won't, because ultimately they're tied up in a system which is not reasonable. It is man-made. religion has to be made by God to be perfect. And so they believe in the one life, and that's it. And if you're fortunate, you're born in a Christian family, and never mind, you meet each other, you go to heaven. And if you're less fortunate, like a poor Hindu or some Muslim or some non-believer, there's one life you can live, and after that you go straight to hell. What kind of philosophy is that? What kind of God is that? Where's the mercy? You see? So you should preach to Christians. You know, these young Christians, they're as confused about their religion as Hindus, young Hindus are about theirs. And so if you meet a person who's a little friendly, can try to maybe able to get through. So the soul, knowledge of the soul is absolutely essential. And Krishna stresses this. In Bhagavad Gita, what does he say? Some look at the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, some hear of him as amazing, and others can understand what, opsa. Krishna, sorry about that. Some, who is that can understand it all? Well, most of world religions, right there. And the atheists. The atheists can't understand, and the modern religions can't understand it unless there's understanding of soul. And that's our problem, that unless the soul is seen of creatures, the world will never find peace. That's it. Unless you have one war after another because of lack of knowledge. You know, if you eat meat, you should understand you eat the body of your brother. What an idea. Think about that. You're a man-eater, you know. So knowledge of the soul is so important, and that's why Prabhupada said we shouldn't preach to other non-Hare Krishna devotees about religion. We should preach about philosophy. And there's no such a thing of philosophy unless the very basic thing is understood. Who am I? I'm Brahmasmi. Who am I that I'm a soul is the ABC of spiritual knowledge. Without ABC, you cannot read, you cannot write, you cannot understand a damn thing. You cannot understand, read Shakespeare, nothing. It completely depends on the ABC. And so the ABC of spiritual knowledge is Aham Brahmasmi. First step in our scriptures. It's so important to understand this, and if you want to preach, this is a way to preach. And I have convinced hundreds of Christians in this way. Reasonable kids. There's no use to talk to people who are unreasonable, who are fixed in their religious belief. No use. But some of them, they're borderliners. And borderliners are very good. You know, they're at the fringe. They're having doubts about their religion. And so you find, no doubt about it, you find people everywhere who have doubts in their religion, even in the university setting. And so you should approach them on the basis of philosophy. You know, the millions of Christians in this country, and of course, it's easier for them to listen to me because I come from the same background. It makes a big difference. And generally, people are suspicious. And even they don't want to hear about reincarnation because the priest told them from childhood on that Hindus believe that you become a carrot in the next life or potato. Well, Father, it's not that easy. There's more to it. But through there's preaching like this, you know, how to lead people away from rational thinking. And so this is a mission you have. You can convert people of other religions, very important, so that people see the soul is everywhere. And the soul, understanding of the soul is absolutely vital in understanding what is what. Now, it's 8 o'clock. Do you have any questions? Hello? Everybody fell asleep? Are you still there?
Yes, Prabhu, we are all there.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. How did you like the class? Did you like it? Hello.
Yes, Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. We are here, Prabhuji.
So what you tell me, you have a question?
Hare Krishna devotees, you may please share your
Uh-huh.
questions.
He will respond.
Devotees in the online session, please share your questions by unmuting the mic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranams to you. This was a very. Are you able to hear us? Is the voice audible?
Voice is able.
What?
Voice is coming.
Yeah,
Are you able to
I
listen?
hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. So wonderful, so nice, and so practical. In fact, Prabhuji, I was just reflecting on what you said in terms of how we should practically internalize this concept of we are not this body, and every action, how Krishna is behind, and he is the force, or he is the person who is sanctioning any action. I mean, you gave so nicely, you explained about like scratching the head and everything, how one should actually relate to Krishna as the person who is responsible for everything, and not one's own self, one's own mind or anything. So that was such a nice eye opener for me. So thank you so much, Prabhuji, and I
Krishna,
think it opens up. Sorry.
because Krishna also says he's the ability in man in Bhagavad
Yes.
Gita. And we cannot lift
Ah,
our hand. He's the ability in man. He's in strength of the strong, the intelligence of the intelligence. I mean, it's all over. Without Krishna, he can't do anything. Nothing,
yes, Prabhu. So though that was there at the theory level, but then you very nicely connected it so that we could internalize it further, which is very much necessary for our, in the way we understand ourselves, and then the way we interact with others, and so on and so forth. So that's a very nice point that came up for me. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. And I don't have a question, but I just wanted to share this. So thank you.
Hare Krishna. Maybe somebody else has a question. I mean, you can give a
Prabhuji,
whole lecture. You can give a whole lecture.
Prabhuji,
You ask people, how do you scratch your head, Something so.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for the very nice class, Prabhuji. I have one question, Prabhuji. So we see that in the purport, we saw that every action of us is actually happening with the will of the Lord, and He is sanctioning our will. Uh, how we can actually fine tune our will so that it is in alignment with the Krishna's will, Prabhuji.
How can we fight? Can you repeat again question?
Yeah. How we can fine tune our will so that it is in alignment with Krishna's will.
How we can fight the will so that we can align to Krishna will.
Yeah.
We can go through the Krishna will.
That's why we have Guru Shastra Sadhu. We cannot know through our mind and through our senses. We have Guru Shastra Sadhu. The verse is, the king sleeps through his spies. The cow sleeps through the nose. The human being sees through his mind and through his senses. And the sage, he sees through scripture. That's the verse of Chanakya Pandit. Through scriptures we can understand. Therefore, and scriptures means, Guru Shastra and Sadhu. Guru, spiritual master, Prabhupada explains everything so nicely in his book, Shastra, scripture, and also you understand through a person who's highly realized. Not anybody, any Baba that you meet in Radhakunda. You have to go to somebody who's actually realized. You can hear from him also, because he is already in oneness with Scripture, in oneness with Krishna's mind. So these are the criteriums we have. Guru Shastra Sadhu. We have to understand. So even in practical terms, I remember when Prabhupada installed the deities in Vrindavan, he told us next day, he was very happy that he pulled this off. Incredible, this temple. I mean, I heard from his doctor, Nityam Gupta, that even before Prabhupada went to the West, Gupta, he was a doctor, he took a bullock cart to go to the main trunk road, the Delhi Agra trunk road, to take a bus to Delhi. This is 1950s or something. And he saw Prabhupada sitting under the very tree that is now in Krishna Balaram temple. And he was chanting Hare Krishna mantra, all this pair of symbols. Can you imagine, how the relationship of Krishna is Srila Prabhupada? It's just unbelievably deep, So he said next day on a morning walk, Jayadvaita Swami wrote it down. He said, now all your problems are solved. And so can you cover my face? All your problems are solved. He said, how? He said, you can just go to Lord Balaram, you can go to Nityam. It doesn't make a difference. And you say, my dear Lord, here's a problem. What shall I do? And he probably said, and they will hear you, and they will make the arrangements. That's another way of understanding what to do. Because Prabhupada told us, if you're not sure, don't do it. Like he gives the example that if you're in a forest and it's very dark, where to go? You go to the left, you go to the right. You make a decision, you end up in a ditch or in a hole. So if things are not clear, don't act. Find out. And so if you cannot find out, then wait till the sun rises, and then you see exactly where to go. So we find ourselves many times in our life where things are not clear. And so the best way of action is, if it's not clear, just wait. Or you ask Krishna. I know one friend of mine, he's a treasurer in our temple in Vrindavan. He says, every time I have a question, I go to Prabhupada in the Samadhi and say, my dear Srila Prabhupada, please tell me what I should do. And he said, without 3-4 days, I get an answer. You see, Super Soul also, he gives us answers, ask and it will be given to you. So we are not alone in the material world. Krishna is right there, and we can answer our questions and hear our prayer. He hears our prayer. He hears he understands us better than we understand ourselves, because he's God. And so we are not alone here. You can ask. You go to a spiritual master and render service unto him, the self-realized soul will give you knowledge, because he has seen the truth right there. It's in Bhagavad Gita. And Sanatana Goswami, he was a great sage. And even he asked this question, Kayami, when he was in Allahabad.
Yeah,
At the Ganga River. He asked, who am I? And then the next question was, I mean, he knew obviously who he was, but he asked this question for ourselves more so than anything. But he wanted to hear from Lord Chaitanya himself. And then he asked why I'm suffering. Very important. Just listen to the sequence. First he asked, who am I? Then he asked why I'm suffering. So without the first question is solved, you cannot understand the next one. This is why Christians, Muslims cannot understand why they're suffering, because they don't have asked the first question, or they have not found an answer for the first question, who am I? Kiyami. So in that order, if the former is not understood, namely that I'm a soul, the latter cannot be understood. The later, why I'm suffering. So it's just there. So we have to ask. In the Bible also, Jesus said, it will be given to you. And that's true. In the material world, you don't know what to ask for, you know. And you're running after this, and you're getting what you're after in the material world, but you don't get what you need, namely Krishna. You don't get if you run around and ask material questions. So life is meant to ask questions to get out of the material world. And you're very fortunate, you know, that you are in the position that you can sit here and listen to this class. Very fortunate, all of us. You know? I mean, think about it. For maybe you can remember some people from kindergarten. I can, actually. Can you remember people from primary school, secondary school, high school? Who is here? Who of your friends from the past is here? Nobody. Maybe one or two. In my case, not a single person that I knew in my life is here. Not one. You know, they're all following. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to go there. Blah, 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 blah. Get lost in the material whirlpool. You know, so if somebody actually comes to Krishna consciousness as a student, as a worker, very fortunate. Brahmana Brahmine Kona, Bhagavan Jiva, you went all over the universe. Guru Krishna Prasad, Bhagavata. You're very fortunate soul. The fortunate soul finds Krishna. You know, none of my classmates is here. And people cannot understand. People are materialistic. You can't understand the simple thing, you know. And so, knowledge of the soul is most important knowledge. Atatu Brahma Jignasa. You cannot understand. So we have an amazing philosophy. We can answer all these questions, you know. But people in general are dumb, spiritually dumb, you know. That's why Krishna says, some look at the soul, etc., and then others, they cannot understand him at all. It's right in the Bhagavad Gita. That's most of mankind. Even they may go to church, maybe they pray to Jesus, to Ganapati, to Durga, whatever, you know. But what do? They pray when they go to the temple, most people, they pray for some benefit, my dear Lord. Give me this, give me that. Prabhupada said one time on a morning walk, he said, so many people ask me, Swamiji, can you give me a blessing? And Prabhupada said, and I will ask him, what will you do for me? That's the point. What will people do for Krishna? That's the question, you know, that divides people on the path back to God and open who are in darkness. What will you do for Krishna? So you have a whole life in front of you. You can do a lot of stuff for Krishna. You know, you can use your talents. Arjuna had the talent to fight, so he used his talent for Krishna. You have your talents. University is your Kurukshetra, where you can sharpen your talents to use them ultimately in Krishna consciousness. I'll give you an example. There was a boy in IT Kanpur. I preached to him 45 years ago. I had a traveling party in India. We had a Tata bus traveling all over India from the south to the north, all Western brahmacharis. And so there was a guy who listened to my lecture. About 150 people came whenever I was giving lecture there. And even professors came because I didn't preach against material education. I said it's very important. You have to make a living, so you need a good education, in India particularly. So I met one of them just a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. And he is, can't remember right now his name. and he is the temple president in Mangalore. And he told me that, I said, how are you? He said he's preaching. He said, how are you preaching? He explained to me that in COVID, he said nobody could leave our temple, nobody could come to the temple. So I and some IT friends, we made a program, study program for students, university students. He said after 3 months, I had 1,000 people. After, yeah, 10,000 people, I think, forgot. So he said now after 3 years, I had 990,000 people listening to this course. You can see how he uses his weapons, in Krishna's service. So your university students study become very meaningful if you see it in a Krishna conscious context. These are the tools you get so that you can maintain yourself in the material world comfortably, and your family and your kids will then you train into Krishna consciousness. In that sense, your study is as important as daily worship. If you see this in a spiritual context, very important to get good degrees. And so then, while you're working, you have your material education, your material job maybe, but you use it in Krishna's service. At the same time, you read and to hear, you study, you develop a spiritual dimension. And so then when you cannot work anymore, one day you're getting old, you have something to depend on. You rely on your spiritual life that you have developed you throughout your entire life. And you can live comfortably and live out your life out up to the last moment. Very important to think like that. Hare Krishna. Any other question?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful explanation.
So if there's no question, then let me pursue to the rest of my day. I thank you very much. Anytime you want to talk to me, I'm here up to, what is it? Up to
21, 20 April.
21, up to Tuesday morning, we're leaving here. I'm here in the temple. If you can come, if you want to, I'm on the phone. My phone number is +91 and then 70
21
214
1.
17246.
Yeah.
Or you can write me, to PR. Can you tell me how my email?
PRE number 2 Germany@gmail.com.
Yes. And here's my
Or
PRE number 2 Germany@gmail.com.
And you see in the red, you see my WhatsApp. Can you see that?
Yes, Prabhu. We can see.
We can see, Prabhu.
Okay. Done. Okay, thank you very much. It was wonderful to talk to you, and God bless you all, and pray for me too. I'm getting a little old here, but I'm still rolling around. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Yeah.
Jai.
Guru Premananda. Hari Hari.
Hari
Jai
Hari.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much,
his
Prabhuji.
mercy and blessings, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Adhanatma. Thank you, devotees. We'll end the
Thank you,
session.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Adhanatma.